He thought breaking me publicly would feed his ego, that watching me shatter would make him feel powerful. But the moment I smiled through his betrayal, something in his world began to crumble. Because that smile wasn't weakness. It was the beginning of his end. The night was supposed to be a celebration, the annual company gala. Something we both had planned together for months. I had spent hours choosing my dress. The silver one Ethan once said made me look like moonlight. I still remember his words. When you walk in wearing that, no one will be able to take their eyes off you. Ironically, that's exactly what happened, except not for the reasons I imagined. The ballroom glittered under chandeliers that looked like falling stars. Music floated through the air. Laughter echoed. Champagne sparkled. And I tried to convince myself that everything was fine. Ethan was the star of the night. Charming, confident, the man everyone admired. He moved through the crowd like he owned the world. Greeting investors, shaking hands, wearing that perfect smile that had once made me fall in love with him. But his eyes weren't looking for me. They were searching for someone else. I noticed it in small ways, the way he leaned slightly when she spoke. How his laughter seemed softer, his smile wider when she was near. Her name was Clara, his new assistant. She was young, beautiful, and bold enough to touch his arm in front of everyone. I had heard the whispers for weeks. They're close. She stays late at the office. He's changed since she joined. I ignored them because love makes you blind, or maybe because I was too afraid to see. That night, the truth refused to stay hidden. Smile. Arya, my best friend Mia whispered beside me, noticing the tightness in my expression. You look like you're about to cry. I'm fine. I lied, forcing my lips to curve, but deep inside, I was breaking. Something in the air felt off, charged, dangerous like the moment before lightning strikes. When Ethan took the stage for his speech, I felt everyone's attention shift. He raised his glass, the picture of confidence. Tonight, we celebrate growth, loyalty, and unexpected partnerships, he said, turning slightly toward Clara. There was a murmur of amusement. Some people chuckled. My pulse quickened. And then it happened. He turned to her, smiled, and kissed her. Not a brief, harmless gesture, but a deliberate, passionate kiss. In front of everyone. The room went silent for a second. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. My chest tightened, my throat burned, and every eye in that glittering hall turned toward me. I saw pity in some faces, curiosity in others, but what I saw in Ethan's eyes was worse pride. He was watching me, waiting for me to fall apart. Mia gasped beside me, whispering, Arya, don't but I didn't move. I didn't scream. I didn't let a single tear fall. I just smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile you give when you're happy. It was calm, cold, and final. The kind of smile that comes from a woman who realizes she's done being anyone's fool. I walked toward him slowly, every step echoing in the silent hall. He pulled back from Clara, straightened his suit, and smirked. Arya, don't make a scene. It's business. Business. My voice was steady, almost gentle. Then consider this. Your first loss. I placed my champagne glass on the nearest table, turned, and walked away. No tears, no words, just that smile. Behind me, whispers exploded like wildfire. Cameras flashed. Someone laughed awkwardly to ease the tension, but I didn't care, because while Ethan thought he had one, he had no idea what that smile meant. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The moment love died and clarity took its place. When I stepped out into the cold night. The city lights blurred through my tears, but I refused to let them fall. I called a cab, went home, and stood in front of the mirror for a long time. My reflection looked like a stranger, pale, hurt, but strangely calm. He wanted to humiliate me. Instead, he freed me. The next few days were a blur. My phone buzzed constantly, messages from mutual friends, gossip blogs, and eventually from Ethan himself. You're overreacting, he texted. It was just a kiss. Everyone's making it a bigger deal than it is. A bigger deal. The man who vowed to protect me from the world had decided to destroy me for attention. And now he wanted to call it a joke. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the file folder on my desk, labeled company contracts. I had helped Ethan build his empire from scratch. The research, the designs, the marketing, most of it had started from my ideas. I had signed documents out of trust, transferring part of my shares to him when things were rough. He had promised, it's just for now. But I had kept copies of everything, And now, trust no longer existed. I spent the next week in silence, meeting with lawyers, reading every line of those contracts. Ethan thought I was sitting at home crying. He didn't realize I was preparing. My lawyer, Mr. Parker, looked at me over his glasses and said, "Mrs. Hayes, half of this company is legally yours. You could take everything if you wanted." I don't want everything, I said quietly. Just what's mine. And that's exactly what I did. The first blow came quietly. A small leak in the press about the company's internal issues. The second came from the investors, who suddenly started withdrawing funds after anonymous reports surfaced questioning Ethan's management ethics. The third was the audit of government investigation triggered by discrepancies in financial reports. Ethan didn't know it was me. He called frantically, demanding answers, blaming everyone but himself. "Someone's sabotaging me," he shouted over the phone. I listened in silence, then said softly, "Maybe it's karma," and hung up. At night, I sat on the balcony, sipping tea, watching the city lights flicker below. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. Because I was finally taking back the power I had given away so easily. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my apartment. It was raining, thunder rumbling in the distance. He was drenched, desperate. His once proud eyes were wild. "You're doing this," he accused. "You're ruining my life." "No, Ethan," I said, standing in the doorway. "You did that when you decided my pain was your entertainment?" "You smiled," he shouted, voice cracking. "You just walked away like you didn't care." "That's because you stopped deserving my tears." He stared at me, his face twisted between anger and regret. "We can fix this, Arya. I'll end it with Clara. We can start over." I shook my head slowly. "You don't get to kiss someone else to humiliate me and then ask for forgiveness. You destroyed everything when you made a spectacle of my dignity." His shoulders slumped, his voice breaking. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said softly, "but at least I'll never regret choosing myself." He left that night without another word, slamming the door behind him. I stood there for a long time, listening to the sound of rain against glass. That smile, the one that had driven him mad, still lingered on my lips. It wasn't revenge yet. It wasn't triumph. It was a promise to myself. Because the moment he tried to humiliate me, was the moment he handed me the power to end him. And he still didn't know it. He kissed her to destroy me. I smiled to free myself. He thought it was the end of my story, but it was only the beginning of his. The storm that night was the last time I saw Ethan standing proud. After that, his downfall began like a quiet rumor that turned into a hurricane. The empire he had built on deceit and arrogance started to crumble piece by piece, and all I had to do was watch it fall. I didn't have to lift a finger. The truth did all the work for me. Within a month, the news began to circulate. Articles started questioning the credibility of Ethan Hayes, CEO of HNG Innovations. Investors began pulling out, claiming ethical disagreements. His assistant, Clara, the same woman he'd kissed to humiliate me, suddenly disappeared from the company without notice. Then, 2 weeks later, her name appeared in the headlines again, but this time, as the plaintiff in a lawsuit accusing Ethan of emotional exploitation and misuse of power. He tried to silence the press, but it was too late. Once people smell scandal, they don't let go. His reputation, once polished and golden, began to rot under public scrutiny. Every investor, every partner who once praised him began to step away, like he was a burning building about to collapse. And through it all, I stayed silent. No interviews, no public statements, no revenge-filled confessions. My silence unnerved him more than anything I could have said. He had expected a dramatic fight, an emotional breakdown, but instead, I smiled through it all, calm and distant. That smile haunted him. He began to call again, at first angry, then pleading. "Arya, please, we can fix this. You're the only one who understands the company." I didn't respond. "You're doing this, aren't you?" he accused in another message. "You're behind this mess. You think you can destroy me." But what he didn't understand was that I didn't need to destroy him. He had already done it himself. I had simply stopped protecting him from his own actions. I used my silence to build something new. I started a design firm under my own name, Arya Designs. I invested my half of the shares that I had rightfully reclaimed and partnered with people who respected me for my skill. Not for my last name. It felt liberating, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. Asterisk people started to notice. My first project, a minimalist fashion line inspired by resilience, went viral. The story behind it captivated audiences. A woman rising from public humiliation to rebuild herself. I never mentioned Ethan's name, but everyone knew. My pain had turned into art, and my silence had become power. Meanwhile, Ethan's world kept collapsing. His bank accounts froze, his investors backed out, and the board voted him out of his own company. The assistant he had chosen over me testified against him in court, and the media devoured every word. He had no one left to blame but himself. One night, months after everything, I received a letter, a real, handwritten letter, something people hardly sent anymore. The handwriting was shaky, almost unfamiliar, but I recognized it instantly. Ethan, Arya, you won. I hope you're happy now. The company is gone. My reputation is ruined, and I can't walk down the street without people whispering, but I suppose this is what I deserve. I've had too much time to think, and now I understand what your smile meant that night. It wasn't forgiveness, it was freedom. I thought you were weak, but you were the strongest person in the room. You didn't destroy me, Arya. I did that to myself. Ethan, I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it away. I didn't feel triumph, just a quiet ache, because no matter how much he had hurt me, there had been a time when I loved him deeply, honestly, completely. I had built dreams around him, and even though he had burned those dreams, part of me still mourned the ashes. A week later, I got the call. Ethan had been found dead in his apartment. The official report said suicide. I sat in silence, holding the phone, unable to speak. The world seemed to go still, the air heavy. I didn't cry right away. I just stared at the window, at the rain sliding down the glass, remembering that last look on his face, the desperation, the regret, the emptiness. He had lost everything. But what truly broke him wasn't money or fame. It was that he couldn't bear the thought of me living without him, smiling without him. That same smile he once thought was humiliation had become his greatest defeat. The day of the funeral was gray and cold. The sky thick with unfallen rain. I went alone, dressed in black, a simple dress, no makeup. I stood at the back of the cemetery, away from the crowd of mourners who were mostly there, out of curiosity or guilt. They whispered about me. Of course, they always did. When the priest finished the prayer, I stepped forward quietly. No one tried to stop me. I looked down at the coffin and whispered, I hope you finally found peace, Ethan. Then, as I turned to leave, I felt the tears come, slow, steady, cleansing. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't pity him either. I just felt free. In the months that followed, I focused on my work. My company grew faster than I ever imagined. People admired my strength, my calm, the way I had turned betrayal into success. Journalists wanted interviews. Women wrote to me saying my story gave them courage to leave toxic relationships. I became a symbol of resilience, though I never wanted to be one. Sometimes, late at night, I would look at my reflection and think of that night at the gala, the kiss, the laughter, the humiliation. I would remember how much it hurt, how much it burned, and then I'd smile, softly this time, not with anger but with gratitude, because that night had taught me who I was. He had kissed her to humiliate me, but in doing so, he freed me. He made me find my strength, my worth, my voice, and my smile. The one he thought was weakness became the thing that ended his world and began mine. Years later, standing on the stage of my own company's success gala, I looked out at the crowd, people who respected me not because of who I was married to, but because of who I became. I began my speech with a line that silenced the room. Once, someone taught me that silence can be the loudest answer, and a smile can be the sharpest weapon. There was a moment of stillness, then applause erupted, but in that noise, I heard something else, peace. Because revenge had never been my victory. Survival was. And as I looked up at the glittering lights above me, I thought of Ethan one last time and whispered in my heart, you wanted to destroy me, but in the end, it was my smile that destroyed you. Then I smiled again, not for him this time, but for myself. For the woman who had learned that no betrayal, no humiliation, no heartbreak could ever take away her power to rise again.